Good. The time for convening has arrived, so we'll start this evening series of meetings, starting with our work session. The first item on the work session is a discussion of the need to amend the City of Sandy Springs Code of Ordinances to clarify certain boundaries in the management of assemblies, authorized and otherwise, prohibit solicitation, canvassing after certain hours, and to give public guidance on the definition of disorderly conduct in certain situations. Presented by the city attorney and the chief of police. Mr. Lee, we'll start with you.
Anti-Defamation League, and we have with us tonight a couple of representatives. I'd like to call Ryan up to talk a minute just about the genesis of this discussion with these three ordinances. The ADL has done a lot of most of the legwork on this, and as all of you know, it's known around the country as a wealth of information, legal backing for discussions that propose these ordinances. All right. Ryan, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Dan. Hey, everyone. My name is Ryan Pelfrey, and I am the Senior Associate Regional Director for the Anti-Defamation League Southeast Region. We are based here in Atlanta and cover Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and South Carolina. I'm here today to express our strong support for these three ordinances that are listed here. See, it's listed as overnight soliciting and canvassing ordinance, ingress-egress ordinance, and campus place of worship buffer zone. In recent years, ADL has witnessed an alarming surge in incidents of anti-Semitism and hate. Across the country, we have seen a nearly 900% increase in these incidents over the last decade. And while our most recent audit has not been finalized, ADL's audit of anti-Semitic incidents for 2023 found that Georgia saw a 115% increase in these incidents. Included in these incidents are instances where individuals, local businesses, and faith-based institutions have been targeted by extremist organizations. Local examples of this can be seen in the sort of hate-filled demonstrations we saw in Marietta, Macon, and Warner Robins in 2023, where white supremacists harassed passersby by waving Nazi flags and screaming every slur you can imagine at individuals as they passed. Here in Sandy Springs and in surrounding communities, you all, I'm sure, are aware of all of the flyers and hate-filled literature that people have awoken to in their driveways, following late-night incursions by extremist groups. At ADL, we are known for our work combating anti-Semitism, but we are world-renowned experts in extremist mobilization, and we understand that what starts with the Jewish community does not end with the Jewish community. That is why, against this backdrop of increasing extremist activity and continued hate and anti-Semitic incidents, that we decided to build out model ordinances that were broadly protective for everyone in the community. They are content neutral, and we decided to offer those as a resource for local governments who are looking to improve public safety in the face of all of these extremist activities that we are seeing really across the country, but it's especially here in the Southeast region. To date, these ordinances have been used across the country, including in Brookhaven, and in Nashville, Tennessee, and are currently being discussed in Ohio, Kentucky, Louisiana, Virginia, and elsewhere. By passing these ordinances, we feel Sandy Springs has the chance to take a proactive stance in ensuring the safety of all of their members of their community, regardless of background, beliefs, or identity, and sends a strong message that this community will not tolerate hate in any way. So again, we urge you all to pass these as you see fit. We really appreciate all of the work you have done on this critical issue, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. In addition, Mayor and City Council, we were asked when these were delivered to the mayor to look at if there was an application other than just as presented by the ADL. And with the help of the police chief, we've looked at incidents around the city, the past, the history, and we have had instances, and we'll talk first about the door-to-door solicitation and canvassing ordinance. Right now, we've had issues with different entities, some commercial, some hateful, some just unwanted distribution of literature not asked for by homeowners, left in driveways, causing trash to accumulate and blow down the street, if you will. This ordinance gives another tool to the police department to address that. It limits the canvassing, which keeps people from appearing to be doing this between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., which is generally when the trouble canvassing, trouble solicitation would occur. In addition, during the daylight hours, property owners can police themselves, police the misuse of this kind of activity themselves. The second ordinance has to do with the ingress and egress of properties. Currently, and this is also a problem, we've had problems at the consulates, we've had problems at some of the houses of worship, we've had problems at least one of the private schools that I know of personally, having to do with folks who have a reason to mount even a peaceful protest, block the public access to that private property. This is a problem. And this ordinance, right now, the police department has its own devices, which include charging folks with disorderly conduct. It doesn't require any distances. It doesn't require just them acting disorderly, not following lawful commands. This gives some direction to the general public as to what can and cannot occur. It gives direction to where folks can be and where they can't be as far as entering and leaving private property. The last ordinance, and that we had this discussion at the previous work session, gave some concern. This ordinance is, and since that work session, we've done a good bit of studying and relying on ADL, of course, but in other jurisdictions, it's been a problem with leaflets being handed out, people being accosted in order to take unwanted literature. And I don't know if it's a sign of the times. The conversations I've had with this with other city attorneys, we all sounded old talking about what goes on today that didn't used to go on, the civil disorder that we find ourselves in sometimes, even with fairly innocuous actions like handing out brochures. This ordinance adopts a well-known Supreme Court case, Colorado versus Hill, which establishes some boundaries for people who have the right to free speech, but at the same time don't accost the folks who have a right to not be accosted by speech and delivery of items like brochures that they don't want. It, in my opinion, protects both those rights. It's very challenging when you seek to write an ordinance or enact an ordinance that at some glance may appear to affect an individual's right to free speech. What these three ordinances don't do is infringe on the content of anybody's speech. It just declares where it can be carried on, how the police can control it, and it gives some direction to the public about distances and the manners that are allowed to be carried on in what would hopefully be a lawful protest. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from anybody? Ms. Rochelle.
Dan, has this been challenged in court in any cities? And you mentioned Brookhaven. Is that, and I think maybe you said Macon, but I was wondering how many cities have passed it and how many cities have looked at it and decided not to pass it.
Usually they don't record when they don't pass something. It's usually only when it's passed. And we can only find that Brookhaven in Georgia has passed it. Now, Ryan alluded to the fact that the problem that facilitated ADL tremendous research on this, that they've had problems in Macon, that they've had problems in Savannah with this sort of conduct. In talking to other local government lawyers, particularly Savannah and Chatham County, they agreed with our analysis that we need some sort of direction for law enforcement in trying to control these kinds of activities. We issue permits, and I'll give you an example. We issue permits for the use of certain areas of City Springs for lawful protest. If in fact, and this occurred in Macon, if in fact some anti-protesters, people who were not involved in the permit, get involved in that, it's usually not a favorable scenario. So the police, the parties involved, need some direction as to how far apart they need to be. This ordinance gives some direction to that.
So has it been challenged in court anymore? Because I have to say, I've lived in Sandy Springs for 30 years, and I've never received one piece of hate mail. And I did ask Chief what events have happened to bring us to this here in Sandy Springs. But I just, as a city, I'm not interested in getting into another lawsuit, and so I don't want to put us in the position where we're going to be challenged. And just curious, are there other cities? Has it been challenged at all in other cities?
This particular ordinance has not been challenged, but the conduct that we are regulating and the way that this ordinance challenges that conduct has been tested in court. There's a great quote. I added it to the memo here, and I'll just read it to you. Although the ordinance prohibits speakers from approaching unwilling listeners, it does not require a standing speaker to move away from anyone passing by, nor does it place any restriction on the content of any message that anyone may wish to communicate to anyone else, either inside or outside the regulated areas. It does, however, make it more difficult to give unwanted advice, particularly in the form of a handbill or leaflet to persons entering or leaving common areas. The courts have upheld this. In many instances, the wording that I just read to you came from anti-abortion pamphlets. Colorado has a law against it, and it has withstood the United States Supreme Court scrutiny.
Any other questions? All right, Ms. Mueller.
So, Dan, just a question on the overnight door-to-door. It's specific to private residents. Is there a reason why we would or would not want to consider commercial or mixed-use properties extending this ordinance to those properties? Should we decide to try to adopt?
It's something you could consider. The reason for it is more of an enforcement, and I'll let the chief speak to this. Generally, this is a problem when people are in their house and their lights are out and the doors are shut. And that's when this unwanted solicitation occurs. Generally, commercial buildings are open more. I think the abusers of this target residential areas. And again, the chief can speak to this. I don't think the horrific instances that Ryan was talking about have occurred at commercial areas. So that's the reason we did not write that into the ordinance. But it is something you could consider.
Mr. Baumann.
Along those lines, actually, I've probably gotten most of my unwanted literature when my car is parked in a shopping center, out at a restaurant or wherever, and sometimes it's for a car wash. But I've had hateful stuff. In fact, years ago we had a school that was trying to apply for a school field conditional use permit, and if you all will recall, the opponents to that were very aggressive in flyering cars on public rights-of-way and in other manners. So, I think, and I'd certainly have Ryan speak to that. But let me ask you a question. So the ordinance that is a first impression, the flyering ordinance is not a first impression. That has been adopted, something close to that, or if not exactly like that's been adopted in Brookhaven, right? I think
this exact ordinance was adopted.
That's right. And the other two are probably first in state. Is that right, Ryan? Warner Robins, Savannah, Macon have not adopted the other ones. Is that right? Okay. But let's go back to the flyering one, because I think that's the one for which we've had the documented incidences. So do people that distribute these flyers, whether they are hateful or commercial, whatever they are, they have a safe harbor from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.? Is that right? I mean, so this ordinance on its face does not apply at all other than during the nighttime hours. Is that correct? So
That's right.
Right. So their safe harbor for the distribution of this hateful literature or other literature is during daylight hours.
That's right.
Right. So we have no way to protect those hours. I mean, let's say this body decided, look, unwanted literature is unwanted literature, and we want to go a step further. And I'm not saying yes or no to whether we should do that.
Mm-hmm.
What would prevent us from taking the Brookhaven way of doing things and saying, look, if you don't have permission, you can't put material on a person's property. Why? What's preventing us from doing that?
Nothing.
Does the Constitution prevent that? Or does the time, manner, and place come into play potentially there by saying, look, you can still do this activity? I mean, I don't know why we allow this. There's other uses. I mean, we all get we get free newspapers whether we want them or not. Sometimes we want them. I don't want them when I can't cancel it. I cancel my AJC and my mail when I'm out of town. But if things that I don't want pile up on my driveway, that's a safety hazard. I mean, I think we have other policy considerations here. So I'm asking, what's to prevent our body from just saying you can't do this, or do we have to tell our citizens, put a sign out that says unwanted material, keep away from here? I mean, do we have because you said something about them policing themselves during daylight hours.
That's right. Individuals have a right to tell people you can't put that on my property.
How do we do that?
They see somebody putting it out, and that's why the daylight hours matter. If it's at night, that's why this is listed as at night, because most people are not outside. It gives the police a tool if they catch somebody. None of this will matter unless somebody is caught.
Well, we do hope that people have, they bring cameras and other things to assist with those things. But I guess I'm asking you, why not go further?
Again, we thought this was a start. This is what
would you recommend as city attorney?
In talking to the police chief, I think the enforcement of an ordinance is very, very important. The ability to enforce an ordinance is very, very important. The nighttime hours are what we are targeting with this ordinance, and that's our recommendation to you.
All right, so not anything further than that. So let's take a newspaper, one of the local papers that we get, or flyer. I mean, you get all kinds of things from time to time in your driveway. So somebody wants to bring a perfectly appropriate newspaper to your house. They can't do it at 6:45 under the ordinance in the morning. They can do it at 7:15. Is that right?
That's right.
That's how they have to modify the behavior. And somebody with a hateful, obscene piece of literature can't do it at 6:45 a.m. They can't do it at 7:15 if it violates some other thing. But under this law, they're not in violation.
Remember, the challenge here is to not regulate the content.
Well, that's right. And part of that's time, manner, and place.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, I think, and it's okay to say that. I think, as I understand it, this limitation, because I think they had this conversation in Brookhaven, was, you can spew your hate, but not every hour of the day. And the public policy here is, look, in the nighttime, potentially when people are most vulnerable, we don't want to allow that.
Well, and most of them are doing it when nobody's there and people wake up and they have a shock effect. If I'm there, if I'm awake at 7 o'clock and somebody shows up to put this out, then I can call the police. I can say he's littering my yard.
Yeah. Hayden, what time do you all put your paper out?
I'm not sure, but it's probably not before 7.
Okay. Just since I have the floor, I want to thank ADL, the work you all do. We worked together with the hate crime warden several years ago. It was a really great process when we were first in state, and that actually led, I think, in part to other municipalities. I specifically recall counties calling us. Fulton County, Bob Ellis called us and said, how can we do it? And so setting the example was good. I also saw a couple of recent tweets, Ryan, from ADL where you called out a Pentagon spokesperson for her tweet regarding the Leo Frank case. And ADL was in many ways founded on the Leo Frank case, which was here in Georgia. So I want to thank you for that and for your other statements that have been made in regard to having universities enforce their codes of conduct. where we've seen a lot of this behavior is really at its worst right now, where folks are being harassed on university campuses and where campuses are having to balance First Amendment rights, but also codes of conduct. So thank you for that and for all the ADL is doing, I think, across the board, not just in the area of anti-Semitism, to combat hate. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Well, I want to say thank you. And
Melody.
oh, I'm sorry, Melody. Dr. Kelly.
All right, thanks. I have one question, maybe more, about let's do the ingress and egress. All right, I just want to make sure I understand. What is the difference between how it currently stands and after it would stand if we adopt this ordinance? So right now, what can the police do, and then what will they be able to do? How does it aid them? And Chief, feel free to chime in, but I'm just curious specifically how it.
That's a great question. Ostensibly, it's the same. The police are empowered right now to arrest people in Sandy Springs for disorderly conduct, and that would be conduct that violates a lawful order or an established ordinance. If somebody's blocking the ingress and egress into private property, then they are already violating the law. What this ordinance does is gives direction. It sets that 50-foot radius, which is some engineering standard for a turning radius to get in and out. So people in a church, let's say, can get in and out while folks can stand on the sidewalk and protest. They just can't protest to the limit of blocking the ingress and egress.
Okay. So of these three, just to provide direction, I'm most interested in the overnight door-to-door. That seems most feasible to me at this time. I still have the same issues with the campuses and places of worship. The language looks just about the same as it did in January, and I stated my interest then. So for me, if I had to say what I'd prefer to see come back to us in a public hearing, it would be the overnight door-to-door soliciting and canvassing ordinance. Just wanted to put that there. And Mayor, you can pick up.
Mr. Paulson.
Thank you. Come on. Let's talk about practical realities of this. Let's say I'm coming to City Hall and there's a group of protesters out there. I'm coming to City Hall. I don't want to talk to any of these folks. They have to give me an 8-foot clearance so that I can get into the building. They can't block my way. And this 8-foot distance is what they've got to provide for any pedestrian walking in, so that there's no resistance or no obstruction to me getting into the facility. Is that one of the 8-foot requirements here?
That's right.
Okay. And likewise, if I'm walking down the street and there's a group there, I could just walk by them. If anybody approaches me and I don't want to be approached, that's where the 8-foot comes into play as well. If I'm dumb enough to walk right by them, obviously I'm the one that's getting closer, so they have the right to stick stuff out in front of me, but all I got to do is wander away. As long as I'm 8 foot away, they can't chase me. That's essentially what this 8-foot requirement is essentially dictating, correct?
It polices the aggressor. That's exactly right.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, we've all seen these stories about people not being able to get into businesses and facilities, and you can protest all you want, but if I need to go in somewhere, someone needs to go in somewhere, I want to make sure they're not blocked in any way. It sounds like that accomplishes these. I would like to think that this will maybe chill this kind of behavior in Sandy Springs, and if we can give somebody who's trying to cause this, dissent, we give him pause and he decides to go to another place to do that, that's fine with me. And if they decide they want to do it, these are the rules of the road that they have to follow, and as long as they follow these rules, they're free to protest however they want. That's my take on these. I'm good with all three of these coming back. We'll see what the public says, but at least these are not egregious. It seems to me these are acceptable limits, so that nobody doesn't feel threatened in any way by some crazy mob that's excited about something. So that's my take on it.
Hey, Mayor, real quick. I heard Dr. Kelly ask about public hearing. So are you asking, because I would endorse this, that these, when they come back, it's going to come back at the next meeting?
Up to y'all.
Yeah, I mean, well, not really. But put it on the public, go ahead and just put them as 3 separate votes on the public hearing calendar. So in case somebody from the public wants to exercise their First Amendment rights contemporaneous to the adoption of these or the debate of these things, let's put them on the public hearing and see if somebody wants to come speak to it. I want to give the public an opportunity to do that inside the context of that discussion. That would be, I would endorse that request.
Okay.
It seems like a logical next step.
All right. I want to thank ADL for bringing this to my attention. We have had some incidents in Sandy Springs with the flyering problem. There have been protests not in Sandy Springs, but just over the river in Cobb County, where they blocked entrance to a synagogue during worship services. And these are an effort to try and get ahead of any of that type of behavior that occurs here. The goal here is to balance everybody's rights. People who have the right to speak, protest, say whatever they want, whether I find it offensive or not, but also to protect people from having their rights not to be subjected to it protected as well. And that's what we're trying to do. Also to give the police and first responders the ability to do their job and without interference. In fact, there's legislation that's moving through the General Assembly right now that makes it a crime to interfere with an officer in the performance of their duties, which goes well beyond what we're talking about here. So the state law may be even tougher when it comes to what we're calling the halo. So, you have a right to film, you have the right to yell, you have a right to protest. You just cannot physically interfere with an officer doing their sworn duty. So we're just trying to make sure that there's a balance here within everybody's rights, and that one set of rights don't supersede or overreach into someone else's ability to conduct their rights as well, enjoy their rights. So that's the purpose here, and we'll be bringing this ordinance back to a vote as possibly in the next meeting. We'll just kind of go through and sort through what we've got to do in the process and get them back here fairly soon. If there's no other commentary, then we'll move to the next item, which is the Safe Streets for Sandy Springs Safety Action Plan by Ms. Westcott.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are actually at the place on the Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan where we are coming to a conclusion. But I want to say that even though we are coming to a conclusion of the Safety Action Plan, we are not concluding our safety efforts. And through this process, we have coordinated with police and fire and communications and community development and even staff in our Geographic Information System Department on this plan, as well as the public. And we know that addressing places that lead to serious injury or death on our roads, whether it's somebody walking, bicycling, riding transit, or in their own vehicle, is going to take a lot of different ways. And one of the things that we are doing as part of this plan, and we wanted to remind you all before we come back to adopt the plan a month from now, is to remind everyone of what our safety countermeasures are, and also some goals to actually get to 0 deaths on our roads. It's a big, big goal, right? But I think it's achievable. But it does take everybody. And so with that, I would like to introduce Nathan Gomez from Gresham Smith. He served as our project manager on our safety action plan to provide a just brief overview of some of the things that that Public Works usually takes on in this effort, right? So we've talked about strategies for communications and enforcement and education and things like that. But we also need to identify projects where we can really match up those locations where we found the greatest need with some mitigation efforts. So we call those countermeasures. We've had some other studies in our city, like the access management study that we completed a couple years ago on Roswell Road. And as it turns out, this study kind of confirmed we're on the right track there. Roswell Road is one of our facilities in the city that really sees a lot of serious injury and fatal crashes. So with that.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Want to quickly go over the, oh yes, that's what I wanted. The goals and targets which are part of this plan, which are recommended for adoption. Point out these are the two goals within the plan document. The first one is to adopt a goal to achieve that zero fatalities and serious injuries by 2050 on city-owned streets. And the second goal is to work with GDOT, our state partner, to establish goals for state routes and limited access facilities, which they govern within the city, for an annual 5% reduction in fatalities and serious injuries. So kind of coming off of that, like Kristen mentioned, the project work program that we developed went through a very quantitative process in identifying those locations. We had a plethora of crash data and also traffic volume data which helped us do this. We developed what we call a high injury network where most of the crashes were happening within the city. We looked at those locations. We knew where currently projects were programmed, so we knew we did not need to focus there as far as this plan was concerned. We prioritized all these locations based on crash rates, also knowing the number of crashes, the traffic volumes, the cost that the society has to bear based on these different types of crashes that happen, and also the number of fatal and serious injuries that happen on each of these locations. So we went through a very quantitative analysis to prioritize these locations. And then what we ended up was a constrained list of projects where the first 15 years is financially constrained, and overall the list has 21 infrastructure projects, which I'll share in the next couple of slides. So that work program starts with a short-term list of projects, which are those projects which can be delivered in a time frame of 1 to 5 years. Most of them are corridor projects, and like Kristen mentioned, a lot of these projects were otherwise identified in an existing plan, such as the Roswell Road Access Management Plan or the North End Safety Study, and so on and so forth. There were a few, the light blue colored one in the middle, those were newly identified as part of the Safety Action Plan. So this short-term list of projects, the 5 projects shown here, are what we're recommending to be included in the short-term work plan that can be delivered within a time frame of 1 to 5 years. And similarly, going to the midterm, these are the 5 projects which we think can be delivered in that 5 to 15-year time frame. Includes 3 corridor projects and 2 intersection projects. And then lastly, it's in a couple of slides ago, I mentioned that we went through a financial constraining exercise. So the short term, the 1 to 5 years, and the midterm, 5 to 15 years, that's the financially constrained list. And then, we had identified a total of 21 projects for the entire work program. The short term has 5, midterm has 5. The remaining 11 is in the long term, 15 plus years time frame, and this slide kind of shows the one intersection project, several along Roswell Road, and some of the other corridor projects on Dunwoody Place and Glenridge Connector. Those 11 projects are within the 15 plus years of work program. So at this point, the draft plan has been completed. The final draft has been uploaded to the project website, and it will remain there for public comment from 20th towards April 15th. And our plan is to bring this back for consideration for adoption at the next council meeting, which is on April 15th. So that's the plan or the next steps. With that, I think I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Any questions about the safety? Mr. Bauman.
Thank you, guys. So, Kristen, can you look back on projects that we've done and see do we have enough time now and see the impact of those projects and come back to us as part of this process to say, hey, we told you XYZ project, the conditions were this, we've completed those projects, they've been in service for 2 or 3 years, and show us, I mean, it may not be enough time yet because a lot of this is over a long
Right.
time. But
Well, there are
whatever,
things-
surely you have some data.
I think that's the natural next step, right? Even we noticed in this plan, some of the locations where the city has recently completed
Yeah.
projects, like Glen Ridge at Roswell Road, because of the time frame that we did this plan, it captured that data
Right.
before that project was completed. And so
Was there a
moving-
way to do high level sort of like
there is, and you can look at the
accidents and
right. And one of the challenges in doing apples to apples comparison as opposed to apples to oranges is to make sure that at the time you do the study for the original plan or design that you have the volumes as well as
Yeah.
the crashes, because you need to normalize it against something.
well, if you have
And
it.
and otherwise it's just a distribution of crashes. And you can say, like at Roswell Road and Abernathy, since we've done some of those short-term safety countermeasures a couple years ago with GDOT, that we've had improvements, but we also had traffic volumes,
Well, it's clearly in your
right? But if, one of the mitigation measures we did at Roswell Road and Abernathy after that study was to signalize that right turn. And so that's a pretty easy thing to see. That was actually the highest crash pattern at that intersection before we made that
Yeah.
correction. So those are
Yeah, I mean,
things we can look
bad
at.
data is probably worse than no data, but if you get some data that's
Yeah,
good,
it's
it would be
something,
helpful.
and it helps to start, though, as we move forward with these additional, especially safety-focused projects.
I mean, councils 30 years from now are going to be able to look back on a lot of this
Right.
work and judge, what was effective, what worked, what didn't work. And I drive through the traffic circle at Northside Drive and Old Powers Ferry and Riverview, and I got to tell you, you've taken a lot of, I haven't gotten a ton of feedback other than the aesthetics from people over there, but driving through it takes away a lot of anxiety I can see how that does. I mean, it's just really, really a smooth operation over there, the traffic flow, and there's no hesitation, and I just would be stunned if we don't see great data coming out of that, years from now. So,
That is a really good example as
Yeah.
well.
thank you.
Ms. Rochelle.
Where does the money come from for all these projects? Do they become T-SPLOS projects?
The city will have to look at a lot of different funding sources. So right now, we're kind of at the point that we are going to do a minor update to our transportation master plan. So we want to take in the projects. We were here about a year ago for the Powers Ferry small area study. We've done the access management study. Now we've completed the safety action plan and bring those all in one program so that we can make recommendations across the entire city moving forward. But the options for funding are obviously the city's capital program, a future transportation special purpose local option sales tax, our federal partners as well. We usually go through the Atlanta Regional Commission to request federal matching grants for projects. So those are some of our primary sources.
Have you noticed, or do you know whether any of these programs are going to continue to be federally funded?
I can't speculate on
Yeah.
that at this point. I don't think I've seen, I don't have Ezekiel here, but some of the programs that were under the previous administration moved forward in the next administration and they changed some of the parameters, but the project, so one of those is, we came here and asked if you wanted to move forward with it, but was formerly called a RAISE grant, and now it's a build grant. And they changed some of the criteria, but we still submitted a build grant application to USDOT. So I don't think we've seen any guidance on safe streets and roads for all. That was one of the benefits of participating in this, was that they also provided infrastructure funding for program to actually move forward with some of these recommendations. So we'll see. We'll just stand by and watch that. But we do have Georgia Department of Transportation and the Atlanta Regional Commission who also help us get projects executed.
Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So, 2 comments. Following on Councilman Bauman's point about we've done some improvements, one of the ones that popped into my mind was Allen Road, where we straightened that out, and that's got to be 4 or 5 years we did that. I'd like to know, how has that intersection improved compared to before the fix? Because that, isn't Allen the one's right down? No, it is Carpenter.
Cliffwood at
It's
Carpenter.
Carpenter, yeah, sorry, my bad. Carpenter. Yeah, Allen's another one. We put the barrier in there so you couldn't go out and turn left.
Right.
But anyway, the Carpenter one's the one that I'd be interested in. Do we have any incidents ever since we fixed this thing?
We do, actually, and that's one that I've already coordinated, actually, with we have a relationship with the Signal Operations Program with Georgia DOT, and one of their objectives is to work with their city and county partners at particularly signalized intersections for intersection operational improvements as well as safety. And it did come up in our safety action plan with data both before and after our improvements. And I said, let's dig down a little bit deeper on that. And it was a task I could give them, and they're still researching that to see if, are there any mitigation measures that we could take, say, with the way the signal is timed and phased right now that might contribute. Because partly is my own interest and yours that we've had in 2 years. The signal cabinet for that intersection has been hit and destroyed twice by vehicles that were in crashes that ran off the roadway, and so we've had to pay to replace that twice. So that
we
also
fixed
brings
the intersection, but we caused the signal box to be a target.
Well, we don't know why that's occurring. Why are these types of crashes occurring? And so then you have to really dig down. Even though we looked at all these, we looked at 27,000 crashes for this study. When you get down to the intersection level, you really have to do the intersection diagramming and kind of see what the patterns are, which is what we've done at Roswell Road and Abernathy and some other locations. We did that in the medical district safety study as well as the North End safety study. So it gives you a little bit better understanding of what kind of treatments might mitigate that. So we are presently looking at that, but we'll probably dig down further.
I'd be interested in what hopefully the after is better than the before, right? That's what we
Absolutely.
don't want.
And it might be, right? But we have to go a little bit further back in time on when that was
Second point,
split.
I'm doing the math over here, and by year 2050, I will be 101 years old. And so I would rather not have to wait to 2050 to have zero
Understood.
crashes. So my request is, if we pack all these into a target date of 2040 instead of 2050, how much money are we talking here? And a bunch of your projects are in 15 years, which 2040 winds up being 16 years or 15 years away. So anyway, if we don't have to wait till 2050, and when I'm 101, I'd rather celebrate it when I'm only 91. So let's find out what the impact is if we shorten that by a decade. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Ms. Rochelle.
I forgot to ask this. On the Abernathy Roswell Road is the 15-year projection, I guess. And so that seems like a long time. I'm not going to tell you how old I'm going to be, but does that mean we're not going to do anything for that on that intersection for 15 years, or are we still looking at other options?
Well, I think that just in terms of Roswell Road and Abernathy, we did execute some short-term safety improvements a couple years ago in collaboration with Georgia DOT. Traffic engineering, and with some outside consulting, we have looked at some other alternatives to try to mitigate some of the other crashes and operational issues we have there. But we know that that's a pretty big thing to bite off. So I think we always can look for opportunities for other crash modification treatments. They aren't always, sometimes you really have to put on your sharpen your pencils a lot to get to those things, because a lot of times we want to do something quickly, but it, just putting up a sign or striping may not help. But maintenance absolutely can make a difference. Looking at things like the signal timing and phasing also, combined with things sometimes if we know where we might be seeing a lot of red light running and crashes related to red light running, is combining those efforts of analysis with some limited enforcement to try to bring that down, right? So there's a lot of different ways to address that.
You may recall that some of the solutions that we were presented required us to buy 3 shopping centers and some townhomes, which was a rather expensive solution. So hopefully things will get a little bit better. Dr. Kelly.
So there are, right now, a couple of intersection projects that we are working on. I think Trowbridge and Roswell Road, North Ridge Road and Roswell Road. Do you have any updates on those projects? Just at those intersections, I think the goal is safety. So
A little bit of safety and a little bit of operations and a little bit of accessibility improvements is what we're looking there. So those are we're trying to make them short term. They are actually, we are trying to there are some signal improvements.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest improvements is at Trowbridge because we have recommended removing the channelized right turn lanes. So right now there's a channelized right turn lane northbound to eastbound and westbound to northbound. And from an accessibility standpoint, if you're on foot, that's not easy to navigate. And we also have identified in the safety action plan a lot of a crash pattern there as well.
Okay.
And so when you are coming off of Trowbridge onto Roswell Road, it appears that you have a merge lane right near the Publix there, and you really don't. And so cars begin to turn and then stop or hit it. So we have a crash pattern there, and we think even this small project to change the curb radius should alleviate that.
Okay, great.
And it will be striping out that. So, but they are in the process of getting out for bid for construction.
Right, that's where we are with that.
Yep.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Any others? All right, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Are there any other items, council? All right, we will close the work session and move to regular order. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sandy Springs City Council to order for Tuesday, March the 18th, 2025. Will the city clerk please make the announcements and call the roll?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just to remind everybody in attendance, continue to silence all cell phones and other electronic devices at this time. Individuals who would like to provide public comment at a city council meeting are required to complete and submit a public comment card in advance of the meetings. Those public comment cards are available online at the chamber entrance. Individuals providing public comment may be allotted up to 3 minutes to speak on their single chosen topic. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Rusty Paul.
Present.
Councilmember John Paulson. Here. Councilmember Melody Kelly. Present. Councilmember Melissa Mueller.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Rochelle. Councilmember Tibby DiGiulio. Absent. Councilmember Andy Bauman.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, have we received any public comment cards?
Yes, we've received 2 this evening. The first is for Alex Sommer, who will be followed by Bill Griffith.
Mr. Sommer.
You need my name and address, right?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Sure. Alex Sommer, officially Alexander, 1503 Tree Lodge Parkway, Sandy Springs 30350. So yes. Tonight I would like to talk about school lunches. There's already been $1 billion cut from the federal programs. I've been running some math today. Based on the Georgia Department of Education website, the current cost for a school is $3.81, and we get a federal subsidy of $3.32. Now, that's for people who get free lunches or subsidized lunches. The percentages of that, High Point 48%, Ridgeview 45, North Springs 43, Ison as high as 74%. I ran the math looking at the amount of students that would be SOL if this were to happen. We're looking at a total of just over 2,000 students. So at that $3.81 over the course of a year, subtracting how much you're already paying in that 49 cents, we're looking at a bill of about $2.7 million. So I want to make sure that we have that money and that we're going to feed our children. Because it is unacceptable that in the United States of America, we have children that might not get to eat. And let's be honest here, 90% of those on this free lunch are Black or Latino. So we're already talking about people who are already struggling because of society around them. So what I'm asking you, Mayor Paul, is would you please look in the eyes of Councilwoman Kelly, Councilwoman Mueller, and promise them that no child in Sandy Springs will ever lose their breakfast or lunch? Are you willing to do that?
Thank you for your comments. Your time is to talk to us, not necessarily feedback.
So the answer is no, you won't do that.
It's not appropriate in this forum.
That's your opinion, and now I have more ammunition against you in this election. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Bill Griffith.
Mayor Paul and council members, one of the last 5 times I've been here, I postponed the backstory related to my previous statement that, quote, an approximate 1-mile stretch of Roberts Drive that's part of Phase 2 of the Side Path Plan is a very dangerous stretch of road. It may be the most dangerous residential mile in the city. If not the most dangerous, surely it's on the short list, end quote. Now, I want to take another short detour from that story to comment on 2 things I've seen recently. First, I saw it reported that at the City Council's annual retreat last month, quote, public safety remains one of the city's central priorities. That's good. Second, I heard tonight of a proposal that the city adopt a goal, quote, to achieve 0 fatal and serious injury crashes by 2050 on city-owned streets, end quote. 25 years to achieve 0 serious injury crashes on city-owned street. That's not good. Make that a goal by next year. How do you achieve such a goal? Maybe by cracking down on speeding on city-owned streets like Roberts Drive. Now, back to the aforementioned backstory. Previously, I described 9 single-car accidents, one of which was fatal, on the above-referenced stretch of Roberts Drive, and provided a basis for believing, quote, there were probably at least 30 accidents during the approximate 26 years prior to the installation of the flashing speed signs, an average of about 1.2 accidents a year. And those are just the ones of which I am or was familiar. Now I want to describe some other accidents which I remember that happened on the above referenced stretch of road after mid-2010 when those signs were probably installed. If stated, I was at the scene prior to the wrecked vehicle being removed. If not so stated, I've at least seen some of the damage caused by those accidents. Accident number 10. In September 2015, a crossover accident happened about 320 yards from my driveway. The wrecked car ended up well into my neighbor's yard. A pedestrian or an oncoming car would have been in trouble. Speeding was likely an issue. Number 11, maybe 6 or so years ago, an eastbound vehicle left the road, crashed through my neighbor's fence. A pedestrian would have been in trouble. Speeding was likely an issue. Numbers 12 and 13. Maybe 4 to 6 years ago, 2 separate at-the-scene accidents happened about 100 yards from my driveway. Both cars went completely off the road and down into one of the steep and deep drop-offs that are very near the curb. Both cars hit head-on rather large trees at the bottom of the drop-off, maybe 10 feet down. Both cars were likely totaled. A pedestrian would have been in trouble. Speeding was likely an issue, and I'll be back.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. All right. Any others?
No, that's it.
All right. We'll close the public comment period. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Mayor Paul,
Mr. Paulson.
I move that we approve the meeting agenda for Tuesday, March 18th, 2025.
We have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve the meeting agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on the meeting agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The meeting agenda is approved. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor Paul,
Ms.
I
Rochelle.
move that we approve the consent agenda for Tuesday, March 18th.
Have a motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Consent agenda is approved. Moving to public hearings, the clerk will please read the first item.
Agenda item number 2025-059. This is a request to conduct a public hearing on the 2025 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan presented by Planning and Zoning Manager Michelle McIntosh Ross.
Mr. McIntosh Ross.
Greetings, good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm here to announce the 30-day comment period for the 2025 Annual Action Plan of the CDBG program. No action is required tonight. The city is required to create and update the Annual Action Plan, the AAP, a summary of annual activities for the use of the CDBG program funds. For the 2025 AAP, the city plans to continue the Roswell Road multi-year sidewalk project, the Hope Road sidewalks, the design of the Hope Road sidewalks, and to defease the Section 108 loan. We have the draft 2025 AAP available on the city's website for the public to review and comment. And on May 6th, after the review period, we'll be prepared to come back before you at a regular meeting to have a resolution to request for the adoption of the AAP. Again, no action tonight, just announcement of the comment period.
All right, thank you. Any public comment cards? All right, we will close this phase of the public comment period, and we'll be back for action, correct?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving to new business, the clerk will please read the first item.
This is agenda item number 2025-060, consideration to approve a contract award to GS Construction, Inc. to construct the 5030 High Point Road Drainage Improvement Project and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract. Presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, good evening. In 2023, the city staff engaged a consultant to develop plans to correct deficiencies in the stormwater system underneath High Point Road, specifically at the address mentioned, 5030 High Point Road. As a part of the work identified and then the construction documents prepared by the consultant recommended reconfiguring the existing stormwater system with new reinforced concrete pipe, replacing old corrugated metal pipe at this location, replacing 2 double-wing catch basins, installing 2 concrete head walls associated with the concrete pipe and storm drainage system underneath the roadway, regrading the shoulder and sloping the embankments, and restoration of the roadway post that construction work to replace the storm drainage system here. To advance the project, the city issued an invitation to bid on December 18th of 2024, seeking bids from qualified contractors. A non-mandatory pre-bid meeting was held on January 8th. Bids from 6 contractors were received prior to the February 21st, 2025 due date. Of those 6 bids received, one, the bid from NSEW Incorporated, was considered non-responsive since NSEW Incorporated was not a GDOT Department of Transportation prime pre-qualified contractor. Bid results as follows. NSEW, the non-responsive at 283. GS Construction, very close behind and deemed the lowest, most responsive and responsible bidder at 285, 439, and then 4 other bids ranging in price from $439,000 to just over $535,000. The engineer's cost estimate for this work was $215,800. Upon review of the bids, staff recommends that award be made to GS Construction, a contractor we have used before for other similar work, and as well as a subcontractor on some of their other projects here in the city. With that, we recommend award.
All right, you've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann.
I move adoption of agenda item 2025-060, a request to approve the award to GS Construction for 5030 High Point Road Drainage Improvement Project.
We have a motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, sorry.
Motion. All right. We've got a motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve agenda item 2025-060, contract award to GS Construction for 5030 High Point Road Drainage Improvement Project. Any discussion? Mr. Paulson.
Thank you. Marty, real quick, you're replacing some pipe with new concrete pipe?
Yes, sir.
In this
There's
stretch?
originally corrugated metal pipe here. It was significantly deteriorated. Obviously, as it ages, it does that. And so, yes, sir, it replaces with reinforced concrete pipe in this case.
Is it possible to spin cast this and save some money?
The alignment is
Okay.
debris, alignment, all of those things that pipe goes bad over time had happened to this one. So we do that quite often, as you may be aware. In this case, it wasn't a good candidate for that.
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann.
I just want to thank Councilman Paulson because I've been serving here for 11 years, and I came on with zero knowledge of spray casting and all of these things with pipes and drain. We've had more of these cases over the years, so thank you. I continue to learn, and I actually start to understand some of this and even anticipate the questions. So I want to thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I enjoy hearing the questions on these matters.
On that note, I'm glad I don't disappoint. And if there's any other questions, please let me know. Thank you.
I had a great luncheon about weathered rock today, so that was informative. All right, any other discussion? Ms. Mueller.
So, Marty, just a question on the estimates. Some of them seem so much higher, and they're so much higher than our engineer. I know that we've done Blunt Construction and Vertical Earth have done a lot of projects for us. So I was just curious, do you have any insight into the differences and why they seem to be so much higher?
In this case, it's a challenging place to work. There's traffic control involved. They're going to cross the roadway. They're going to close a portion of the roadway at the time, and they're working on adjacent properties as well. So as much the nature of the work as the conditions surrounding the nature of the work, i.e. the location and challenges with traffic there is, I think, what caused some of the prices to go up a bit here. So,
And are you concerned at all about that, or you think, no?
I think maybe we didn't have the best estimate to start things off here. I think GS is, our experience has indicated GS has given us good price for the work they do. They've been competent, and they're doing a lot of the utility work here in the city right now. So I think they've got some familiarity with our city processes and the challenges here. So,
Okay.
So I
Thank you.
feel pretty good about the numbers until that day I don't anymore. So in this case, so.
Any other discussion? All right. What's the desire of council? Oh, we've already the motion. I'm sorry. We'll call the question. All right. Just got to keep up with my paperwork. We'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2025-060, approving a contract award to GS Construction to construct the 5030 High Point Road Drainage Improvement Project. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2025-061. This is consideration to approve contract award to United Land Services, LLC for Interstate 285 and Georgia 400 mowing, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract. Presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
All right, Mayor and Council, with this agenda item, first thing, but as I begin here, I'm ultimately recommending to you tonight an award recommendation with an award amount of $34,854.47. So not your normal low price you might see for a council recommendation, well within the city manager's approval authority. The reason I'm bringing this award recommendation to you this evening is that this is a base year plus 4 additional years contract. And when you look at the extended values of all possible services delivered under this contract, it would extend to well over $100,000 a year, and then times 4.5, 5 years. So that's why I'm bringing this small contract award amount to you this evening. The other thing that's a part of this contract is that with mowing contracts, we tend to try to award those contracts at or on arrival of the mowing season or just in advance of that, which here we are now. That tends to span our fiscal years. So where we get prices from contractors in this case for a year, we're splitting those prices across 2 fiscal years in this case, where our fiscal year being on June, but mowing season April to October. So with that said, I'll further qualify that this contract as well is modular. This is the mowing of Georgia 400 and I-285, which the city conducts on a relatively twice a month, I believe is our frequency, for those areas on 285 and 400. As you're all aware, segments of 285 and 400 are available or not available right now. And in the future, with future anticipated construction on particularly 400 next with managed lanes, there will be portions of the roadways that will, again, not be available. So to that end, this contract has been crafted to reflect the modularity needed and the pricing required so that our contractors could bid this with some foreseeable cost and anticipate the cost impacts that might come with existing or current construction as well as future years' construction. So with all that said, this contract provides for the maintenance of right-of-way on both the northbound and southbound lanes of shoulders of 400 as well as the eastbound and westbound shoulders of Interstate 285 at various accessible locations. Contractor will be responsible for weed and grass control within the right-of-way, debris removal to ensure a well-maintained aesthetic. Seeking a qualified contractor to perform this work, the city issued an invitation for this bid for this work on November 6, 2024. The ITB requested bidding contractors price per mowing season, April 1st through October 31st, 15 mowings for all mowing areas within the contract limits. A pre-bid conference was held on November 18th. One addendum was posted on December 4th, and the bids were due and were received prior to December 10th, 2024. Of those 10 bidders, United Land Services was the lowest, most responsible bidder with a total over the season price of $103,950.95. The city staff evaluated references and went to observe some of the sites where United Land Services identifies they're performing those services currently. And with that review of references and sites, the city staff recommends that based upon the areas available to mow today, and there's a breakout with those sites and the available mowings between now and the end of the fiscal year, the current award price is recommended to Mayor and Council tonight in the amount of $34,854.47. The contractor also has the option in the city, have the option to renew this contract for 4 additional years beyond this initial year award. With that, staff recommends award to United Land Services.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council? Dr. Kelly.
I move approval of agenda item 2025-061, approval of a contract award to United Land Services for Interstate 285 and Georgia 400 mowing, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
I have a motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve agenda item 2025-061, contract award to United Land Services for I-285 and Georgia 400 mowing, authorizing the city manager to execute the contract. Any discussion? Dr. Kelly.
I want to make sure I understand. So the difference between the 34 and the 103, I believe, is the amount, is essentially what you project to be?
So that will be the amount of work the contractor can provide for us between now and the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
So the areas available times the number of mowings available, and there's a price for each one of those areas for each mowing per each area. So it's the summation of all of those areas times the available mowings.
Okay. And so what does the 34 represent? The 34,000 represents?
That is the price for the remainder of this fiscal year.
Oh, okay. For the remainder of this fiscal year.
Correct. Ending at the end of June.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Mr. Paulson.
Thank you. Marty, just refresh my memory. This is a state highway and an interstate highway, but we're mowing it. Tell me why we're doing this again.
The city entered into several years ago now a right-of-way maintenance agreement with the Georgia Department of Transportation, primarily based upon the fact that the frequency of mowing provided by GDOT was less than the city's desired aesthetic standard. So with that, we entered into an agreement. It encompassed 400, I-285, as well as some aspects of maintenance and repair on right-of-way in Roswell Road.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2025-061, a contract award to United Land Services for Interstate 285 and Georgia 400 mowing. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Moving on to reports. Got a few things that have been going on that I've been doing lately. One, I got an opportunity to talk to the Planning Commission and the Board of Appeals retreat last week. I always enjoy meeting with those. It's always some good dialogue that occurs, and gives them an opportunity to hear from me and me to hear from them, and some good exchange of information. They're a good team. Both those boards are very effective. People take their jobs very seriously, and they scratch their heads sometimes when we don't always agree with them, but they're doing their job, and they take it very seriously, and that's one of the great things I love about it. We had another major highlight of the year was opening day youth sports Saturday, and had an opportunity to be there for that. Was asked to sing the national anthem, and I don't know if anybody else enjoyed it, but I had fun. The Tossed Out Treasures just occurred in the this past weekend. It's one of the highlights of the year. At least at my house, Jan bought the toy store out again, and she bought the girls' clothes. It was just, I don't know how much. We probably covered all their overhead at our house, and they made profit on everybody else. But it's a great event, and the money goes toward a lot of nonprofit organizations around the city, and I just salute the Sandy Springs Society. It takes a lot of work. I mean, they put a lot of effort. It takes months of planning, and then the 3 days of the sale. It's exhausting. So, but they're doing great work, and the proceeds, as I say, will go to support a lot of charitable and nonprofit organizations around town. Signed a proclamation this week for St. Patrick's Day event. We'll have that here this Saturday. And I hope people will come out for that, the wearing of the green, and the Hibernian Society will be here. It's not quite as big as Savannah yet, but we're working our way there. Also, last thing is we had the city manager and I attended a meeting with the North Fulton mayors with Sheriff Labatt, talking about the North Fulton jail situation and whether they can keep that open. It's a big deal for a lot of North Fulton. It's less important to us because we have arrangements elsewhere, but it's the old Alpharetta jail, and the sheriff has been operating it, and the question that he has is can he continue to afford to be able to do that and deploy his personnel appropriately. We had a lot of conversation about whether his existing personnel are being properly deployed for things that are most important. But it was an interesting conversation. Some of the mayors, myself included, didn't always agree with the sheriff's conclusions about what his role in a fully municipalized county is. But that led to some intense conversation. We've got a meeting with the mayors to further consider that conversation and dig a little bit deeper for what each city wants to do. As I say, we're kind of more bystanders in that conversation than participants, but I will be at the meeting to listen and learn and see what the other cities in North Fulton want to do about maintaining that facility as a alternative to having to drive everybody down to the Rice Street station, and so I'm just glad that we've got some arrangements that the chief and the city manager have been able to work out with other jurisdictions that I think are much better for us than either of those options. So that's pretty much it for me. Anybody else? All right, we'll close that. Ms. Carlisle, the unaudited financials.
Good evening. This is the review for your January 2025 unaudited financials. We are at 58.33% of the budget year. Revenues are at 76.24%, and expenditures are at 50.67%. We've experienced a $9 million increase from last month, which is primarily due to local option sales tax, interest revenue, business licenses, and property taxes. The expenditures continue to trend as approved by the FY 2025 budget. And I did just want to review a few things in your packet, just to remind you that In your financial report, we have the cash balances on page 2. Page 3 through 5 breaks down the interest income received from both Georgia Fund 1 as well as Truist. On page 6, we have the local option sales tax trend from 2021 through 2025. Pages 37 through 38 would be the T-SPLOS, both 2016 and 2021. Pages 39 through 42 are the capital projects, including the Fleet Fund, and page 43 is the Public Facilities Authority detail. This concludes the report for January 2025.
All right, any questions of the Chief Financial Officer? All right, hearing none, thank you very much. Next item is we need an executive session for the purposes of real estate litigation. Is there a motion to suspend regular order and go into executive session?
Mayor Paul,
Mr. Paulson.
I move that we suspend regular order and move into executive session for the purposes of litigation and real estate.
Have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve or that we go into executive session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is the move to go into executive session, suspending regular order. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are in executive session. There'll be no further business contact conducted this evening. We will simply return to this room, return to regular order, and immediately adjourn. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think she's got it.